Hello and welcome back to the Mindful Melbourne Maker Podcast. My name is Kath and I'm a knitter, crocheter and knitwear designer living in Melbourne in Australia. This is episode 13 of my podcast and it's the first episode for 2025, which is very exciting. It's a new year, there's lots going on. This is my YouTube channel where I share all about the things that I'm making, and you can find me on Instagram as Mindful Melbourne Maker or on Ravelry as kathsmartin. My knitwear patterns are also on Ravelry under kathsmartin designs, so you'll find those over there. The details for everything that I'll talk about today are in the description box below, and I really appreciate you coming and watching my episode and hanging out on my channel. If you do like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up just to spread the love, and feel free to comment and subscribe to the channel as well. So firstly, before we get started with all the knitting and crocheting, a big thank you to everyone who watched my Vlogmas episodes. It was the first time I'd done that, and I always enjoy watching everybody else's Vlogmas episodes and sort of ploughing through them, and especially in January kind of there's a heap that I watch, and I think I knew that people put in a lot of time and effort into that process, but I don't think I truly appreciated how much time and effort actually goes into making a video every single day. And having done that, I can now say I'm incredibly grateful to all those people that do make Vlogmas episodes, and I really appreciate all the effort and time that they put in to make those videos, because it was quite a lot of effort. It was lots of fun and I did learn a lot, and it's really nice to have captured all the things that happened in December. So yeah, that was fun. So thank you very much if you watched those episodes and commented and shared the love on those. I really enjoyed that process. Don't know if I would do it again this year, but we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe it will be like childbirth where you can't remember the pain in a year's time. So as I said, it's a new year. There's lots of things going on where we've had a lovely Christmas and New Year break. It's been really quiet, lots of days where we just don't have a lot to do, which is good. Actually back at work this week for a few days before we then head off on a bit of a family holiday, which will be nice. We haven't done a proper family holiday like this for a few years, so it will be really nice to get away and relax for a little while before my daughter starts back at school. And we've got a couple of birthdays coming up. So my son's turning 18 in the next week, and then my birthday is a week later, and of course I won't mention how old I'm turning, but yeah, there's lots for us to celebrate in January, which is really fun. So what am I wearing today? It's a bit cooler in Melbourne today. I think it's only a top of 20 degrees, so I threw on another layer. So I've got on my Avent cardigan, which is a pattern by Amber O'Brien. I've showed it to you before, and I knitted up in the 2022 Louie Lola Advent, which was the Cozy Country Advent. This is quite relevant to one of my projects, which you'll see in a sec. So yeah, I threw on this cardigan, which is one of my favorites, so I've popped that on today. One more admin thing before we jump into all the lovely projects. So the knit along that I'm running at the moment with Sian from the Obsessive Maker is the mini mock neck cowl. So that's to knit up the mini mock neck tank by Jessie Made Designs. That was running, or is still running, and it started on the 1st of November. It was just going to go through till the 31st of December, but Sian and I both got distracted with other things during December. I was making Vlogmas videos and working on my Avent projects, and Sian was sewing all the wonderful things. So neither of us have finished, though we are both fairly close on finishing our tanks. So we thought, let's extend it out till the end of January. So that knit along will now run through to the end of January 31st. So if you have knit up the mini mock neck tank during our knit along, or you want to cast on, and if you're a monogamous knitter, there's plenty of time to still get through that lovely project before the 31st. If you do want to enter for a pattern prize, there's a thread in my Ravelry group. There's a thread for finished objects, so pop a photo of your finished object or of your project that you're knitting in there, and I'll pull a prize from there for a pattern for a winner. But otherwise it's a fun knit along to participate in. Sian and I just really both wanted to knit it up, and I'll show you my progress in a little bit when we get to WIPs. So yeah, so that was we've extended that through to January 31st. So pop your project, if you finished it, pop it in my Ravelry thread. You can pop it in both Sian's and in mine and have 2 chances. But also you can post on Instagram with the hashtag mini mock neck cal, and we can all kind of join in and knit those along together. Okay, the last little thing before we jump into my finished objects, I thought I'd share my 2024 stats on my knitting and crocheting. So I did a bit of a quick search on Ravelry and worked out what I filtered by the year completed, because all my projects are in Ravelry. So I was able to very quickly see how many projects I finished last year, what kinds of projects they were, what sort of things I knit up and crocheted. So I thought I'd share that with you today. So in 2024, I had 50 finished objects, which I think when I watch some channels, it feels like that's a lot. And then when I watch other people, or I know people I follow on Instagram do way more than me. So I think I'm probably somewhere in the middle. But I think that's it's good to take the time to acknowledge the achievements, and I feel like that's a lot of good finished objects. And I had a really good mix of types of projects. So I also tallied up what types of projects those finished objects were. So let's go through those. So I had 44 knit finished objects and 6 crocheted finished objects. I had 16 pairs of socks that I finished. I had 16 shawls or cowls or wraps or scarves of sort of neckwear that I finished, 16. 2 of those were mystery knit-alongs. I've completed 2 vests, 3 hats, 3 jumpers or sweaters, 1 blanket, 1 pair of mitts, 1 emotional support chicken, 2 gnomes, 3 dishcloths, 2 pot holders, 1 scrappy basket, which was very fun to make, 1 scrunchie and 1 headband, which I feel like that's a really good mix of little projects and big projects and crochet and knit, lots of all the good things. So that's my stats for 2024. How did you do? How many projects did you finish? So why don't we talk about finished objects? Okay, so my first finished object, let me put this somewhere so I can get my things. My first finished object is my Agnes sweater vest by Bethany Lynn Makes. So this is either a free pattern on her blog, or there's actually also a graded pattern that you can buy on Ravelry. I think when I started it, there was only the free pattern, so that's the one I did. And it's all finished, and here it is here. Doesn't it just look so good? It is, of course, way too hot to be wearing this, so I won't be modeling it today, but I'm sure later in the year I'll have some episodes where I'll be able to wear this because it'll be nice and cold. But those are my granny squares there. And it's such a fun project because it combines both knit and crochet. So you essentially crochet up a whole bunch of granny squares, and then you join them together, so however you prefer to join them, and then you pick up and knit the neckband and the bands, armhole bands, whatever they're called, and then also pick up and knit the waistband. So my stats on this. So I used a 4.5mm hook and 4.5mm needles for the project entirely. It's a worsted weight gauge, so I used scraps for the most part. My main colour, which is this speckled kind of white with beautiful rainbow speckles, that was a Lovely Little Yarns DK weight yarn called Sprinkles on Top, and I held that with a bare silk mohair. So it was a DK plus mohair for the main colour, and then all of the granny squares I used scraps of merino singles from both Blackwattle yarns and Skein yarn, and all in all the lovely pink colours, and I held either two strands of the merino singles together with one strand of silk mohair, or I held 3 strands of this merino singles together to get that gauge sort of across the board. So some of the granny squares have, some of the colours are fluffy, and then others are just the merino singles. So it gives it a really nice texture and a little bit of variation as well. But as you can see, I used all the pink scraps I had, and I just did all of the granny squares. There's no 2 granny squares that are the same in terms of colour. So what I did also, the details of how I picked up and how many I picked up and all that kind of thing are all on my Ravelry project page, so go check that out, because I put all of the breakdown of how many stitches I picked up for the neckband and the hem. I did an Italian sewn bind off on all of the finishes, because that's my favourite bind off for 1x1. So I did that. And what I also did, which I've talked about before, because the pattern between the front and the back flap, the pattern actually has you crochet just 1 granny square, and it makes, you know, quite a small size. I'm sure in the graded pattern it's different, but for mine that wasn't going to fit me, and it was also, I didn't like how it made quite a square armhole if you did that. So I added in, instead of 1 granny square, I put 2, and then I added in 2 granny triangles on each armhole. So that's at the waist under the arm on each side, and then I was able to pick up and make a rounded armhole, and it also gives me a little bit more ease around the waist, which is what I want when I'm wearing this. So yeah, and it blocked out beautifully, and it was really, really fun to make. So it was a really fun way to combine the speed and satisfaction of crochet and the sort of finishing touches of knit. So I think that's all to say about that one. I did include, because also the blog post had a particular way of doing the granny squares, I have a way that I prefer, so I actually put in the instructions for how I do my granny squares in my project page as well. So all the information is there if you wanted to do it. And I think that was all. So yeah, I finished that one off. I think I finished it in November, and then I blocked it in December during Vlogmas. So if you watched those videos, you will have seen that. So yeah, so that was my first finished object. My second finished object was actually one of my Avent projects, and it was my Freckled Whimsy Avent socks. So this was the Avent skein to knit up an entire pair of socks in December. So you do 1 stripe, or you're supposed to do 1 stripe a day. I think I actually finished mine by the 21st of December. So here's my finished sock, and I do have another one here, but my other sock blocker is being used. So here's my finished sock, and aren't the colours just incredible this year? Freckled Whimsy, she does such an amazing job of dyeing. So that's the contrast colour that came with the skein. I got a 50-gram half skein as the contrast, and it's this beautiful dark purple that just goes so well with the absolutely beautiful stripes. And as I say, I ended up knitting sort of probably two stripes a day, and then I did the heel, I did the toe, and I was sort of finished both pairs by I think the 21st. So then I wore them on Christmas Eve as well, because it was a bit cooler, I think Christmas Eve or the day before. Anyway, I wore them. I have worn them since I finished them. So I used my Melbourne socks pattern, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. So it's for fingering weight socks, and it's got lots of options in terms of heels and cuffs and that kind of thing, and also pattern that you can do if you do have self-striping. So I used that pattern. I did a 2x2 rib cuff, and I only did, because I knew they were going to be longer, so I think I only did 15 rounds on each cuff. I did my usual toe, and then I did an afterthought heel. So the instructions for that are in the Melbourne socks pattern, and that way I could just knit the tube while I was knitting the stripes and not worry about where the heel was. I ended up, I looked at previous pairs of socks that I've knit for Freckled Whimsy, and I worked out I need 13 stripes on my foot for it to fit. So I thought for it to be balanced, I'd do 26 stripes altogether. So I did repeat, you'll see the red and pink stripe there is repeated here. So I did 26 altogether, then I cut in the heel between that 13th and 14th stripe, so that there's 13 on the foot and 13 on the leg. And that's it there. Great pair of socks. Absolutely love doing the Freckled Whimsy Avent Skein. I'm definitely going to get it again next year or this year. And I just really enjoy the process of finding out the colours, the process of finishing a pair of socks so quickly. It's just a really enjoyable project. So I knit mine on 2.25mm needles. I do the 64 stitch, so the medium size. And I think that's all. So yeah, they're my Freckled Whimsy Avent socks. And my last finished object was also something that I was crocheting up in during December, during Vlogmas and Advent. And it was using Advent yarn, but not from last year. It was Advent yarn that was left over from making this Advent cardigan. So it was the Louie and Lola Cozy Country Advent from 2022. I had leftovers from making this cardigan. And so I made the Cozy Country Advent Scarf by Sian Crochet, and that pattern was designed in this exact yarn. So I used the exact yarn that it called for, and it's turned out absolutely beautiful. So this is a crochet scarf with chevrons, and as you can see, it's worked through the colours of the Advent. And you'll see some of the colours have more sections than others, because I was just using up whatever I had left over. So for some colours I had more leftovers than others, but I think it actually looks really, really pretty. It looks really effective, even though it might do some people's heads in that there's not exactly the same for each section, but I think it looks really, really pretty. And when it's wrapped around your neck, nobody's counting the sections. And I think my husband has already said that he's going to steal this one. So he is enamored with it, but aren't the colours just beautiful? So that's it there. So this was a great project. So crochet, much quicker than knitting, obviously. So I was able to crochet that up. I started on the 21st of November and I finished it on the 28th of December. So it was 5 weeks. And I used what is it saying? Oh, it's I'm trying to read my own writing. I used a 3.5mm hook, and it is 2.75 meters long. So even though I used scraps, and the pattern actually calls for you to do 3 sections in every color, I wasn't able to do that. Some colors I could only do 1 section, some colors I could only do 2, maybe 5 or 6 of the colors I did the 3 sections. It's still 2.75 meters long, so it's really, really long as it is. You really don't need the full 3 sections. of every single colour. It would just be so long, but it was such a great project. I highly recommend the pattern. It's really well written. I learnt a whole bunch of new stitches that I didn't know, all sorts of half trebles and half treble two togethers and all sorts of different things that I hadn't done before, which was fun. So yeah, great project. And there's a pattern by Sian Crochet that uses the same style of stitching, but it's for blankets, and I think I'm going to do that with some leftovers from this year's Advents, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so they're all my finished objects, and they were a lot of fun, and I'm really pleased that I was able to get them done. So let's talk about my works in progress. So my first work in progress I've already kind of mentioned. It is my mini mock neck tank. Let me just put my little book down. My mini mock neck tank. So it's living in my thread and maple bag, project bag, that I got from Louie and Lola as part of the Knit for the Girls fundraiser. And I'm knitting this one up in this really great colour by Maximoo yarns. This is on Max's Ultra Soft Sock base, and it's called Rainbow Road. So I had 2 skeins of this that I got from a yarn market a year or so ago, and I thought it would be perfect for this project. And here is where I'm up to. It's all sort of bunched up because I'm using a smaller needle, but there it is there. So I've done all of that in terms of the body. So you can see I've done quite a lot of the body. I think I probably still have another 4 inches on the body before I start the ribbing. But what I'm going to do next, because I haven't picked up and done the neckband yet, and I think what I'll do is, because I started on my second skein and I alternated skeins for a few rows here, but it's looking pretty similar. So I've stopped using the first skein. I've got a little ball of that, so I think I'll pick up and knit the neckband with that first ball, and then I'm just going to finish off the body with the second skein, and I'll knit for as long as I think I need. Hopefully I've got enough yarn, it should be fine. And then I'll just do the ribbing. If I do run low on that second skein, I'll just start the ribbing and it will be fine. But yeah, it's coming along really well, and I am just at the knitting round and round and round and round. So it's a really good kind of mindless project for in front of the TV or whatever. But yeah, that's it there. But you can see I'm not finished, so we do need to extend the knit along until the end of January. So I'm hoping to have it done by then. I think, so I cast that on the 1st of November at the start of the knit along, and I'm using a 3.5mm needle. Did I already say that? I don't think I did. But yeah, and I'm making a size large, so there should be some negative ease in there, which is good. My second project is my Find Your Fade by Andrea Mowry. So I thought today I'd focus on the projects I've been working on, which are Advent projects. So there's a bunch of things that I've shown you in previous episodes that you probably won't see today. But I think my next episode I'm going to do a bit of a whip check-in on all my whips and sort of go through all of the bags and show you everything. But we'll do that in a few weeks. So the second project for today is Find Your Fade. So I'm holding that in my Ashen Eve Designs bag, which this bag was part of the Advent, and so I'm using the Ashen Eve Advent for this project. So it was the Ashen Eve Yarnival of Yesteryear Advent from 2024, and I have started this project, which I found somebody had done this particular shawl using an Advent, and they'd put all of the notes in terms of when to change colours and how much you use of each colour, all that kind of thing. It was absolutely perfect. So I've copied the link to that project in my Ravelry project page, but I've also copied out the notes in terms of how many rows you knit of each colour. That's also included in my project page, so that if you want to do the same, you can do it. It's very easy. But here I am in terms of progress on my Find Your Fade shawl. So it's looking really, really good, and you can see the colour melting, which is really the sections of fade where you do kind of stripes between each of the colours. And it's just looking really, really pretty. I'm really enjoying it. It's a very relatively mindless. There's a little things that you do at the beginning and end of each row, and then in the middle you can see there's a spine that's created, so you do a little thing in the middle, but there's a stitch marker there to remind you, and other than that it's all very straightforward knitting. I am up to colour 9. I'm currently knitting on colour 9, so day 9, and I have just finished the last increase row. So from here on in it's the same width all the way along until we decrease. So that's also good because that's one less thing to think about. So I cast this on the 11th of December. So I did, I got a few days into the Advent before I decided that this would actually, it was looking like a fade and I wanted to use this pattern for this. And it was a pattern that I've had in my library for quite a while. So I'm very pleased to be able to use it, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it's going to be great. It is going to be huge, but that's what we love. I'm using a 3.75mm needle. The pattern says 3.5, but I thought that might be, with my style of knitting, the fabric might be a little bit more dense than I'd like. So I just wanted a little bit of a lighter, more open fabric. So I'm using 3.75mm needle. I think that's it. So yeah, so that is very enjoyable project, and it's been pretty quick to work through up until this point, so I've made great progress and I'm looking forward to knitting on that some more. My third project, this was a bit of a I finished off my Cozy Country Advent scarf and I really wanted something else crochet right away, and I was still deciding on what I wanted to use my Advents from last year, so 2024 Advents. I was still deciding on sort of projects and patterns and things, but I knew that I wanted to make a Just Feel Festive shawl by Kathsmartin Ryan. It's a crochet shawl, and if you've knit or if you've crocheted a granny stripe blanket before, it's very, very similar, but in a shawl wrap kind of shape. It's a really great pattern. It's only $1, I think, so if you pop on and you can purchase that one on Ravelry, but I didn't necessarily want to use any of my Advents from last year, and so I had a look through my stash and I found the leftovers from my Daffodil Road Paper Moon Advent from 2023. So I got that Advent in 2023 and I made the grand opening shawl by Stephanie Lotvin. Is that right? If it's not right, I'll pop it here. But I already made that last year when I got the Advent. It was a great project, but it didn't use up all the yarn. In fact, there was at least half of the yarn left over, in some cases more than half for some of the colours. And so, and the base that I got for that Advent was actually a really beautiful soft base. It's the silky sock base, which is 50-50 merino and silk. So it's really soft, but it also means it doesn't mix well with other things that are maybe merino nylon and that kind of thing. It feels quite different. So I didn't want to use it in a scrappy project where I'm using other things. So I thought this project would be perfect for those leftovers, and I had chunky leftovers. So I just dove in because I wanted to crochet. So I started it on the 29th of December, right after I finished my other one. The pattern is, let me show it to you first. So I'm holding it in this Crystal Cat Stitchery bag, one of my favorites with the little hot pink crescents. And I'm using the hook is caught. I'm using a 3.5mm clover hook E, and here is where I'm up to so far. So I think I'm on, what colour am I on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I'm on colour 8. So I started off with, this is the main colour that came with the Advent. I've got a big skein of that still, so I thought I'd do a bit of the main colour on each end just to tie it in. So I've done, there's the main colour there, and then here is where I'm up to so far. So it's kind of it's on the diagonal, and I've done it so that it will be a really good kind of scarf width, and this is the colour that I'm up to at the moment. A really, really beautiful purple, so really, really pretty. So the pattern is actually designed for DK weight, so 8-ply yarn, but I am just using fingering weight yarn, so 4-ply held single. So I adapted, I went down some hook sizes, so I'm using the 3.5mm hook, but I did chain on the same number as what the pattern suggests. So if you use the DK weight and the bigger hook, with that number of chains, it would be a much wider kind of situation, more like a wrap, whereas I kept the same number because I am using leftovers, so I don't have full 20-gram mini skeins for each colour. So I thought in order to get the length that I'd like, I kept the same number of chains as what the pattern suggests, so it is a bit more narrow than what you would get using the DK weight, but I think it's going to be a great width for a really lovely scarf. And I think that's all on that one that I was going to tell you about. So it's really fun. There's a little trick to getting it to go on the diagonal. So if you've crocheted a granny stripe blanket, there's, you know, particular things you do on each side to sort of finish it off and keep it straight. This, you do something different on the sides to get the slants going on both sides, and that's why you pay for the pattern, because it's got those tricks in there if you don't know them already. And it's just really fun and really mindless and very addictive. I warn you now. So once you start crocheting on this, you really don't want to put it down, because you just want to get to the next colour, and it's so quick. So yeah, so that's, I've done all of that since the 29th of December, so only a few days. Very satisfying. So I think I will probably take this one with me on our holiday, because I think it's easier to sort of take crochet hooks than worry about knitting needles. So yes, so that's that one. I've got a couple more to show you. So I had a New Year's Eve cast on. I didn't do a Christmas Eve cast on because I already was making a whole bunch of things at that time, but because I'd finished off a couple of projects by New Year's Eve, I was keen to have a New Year's Eve cast on. I'd also decided what I wanted to do with one of my Advents from last year. So this is my New Year's Eve cast on, and it is being held in this 1121 Windmills Magical Terrarium project bag. So this Advent, I got the Notions Advent from Lisa from 1121 Windmills, and it was the Magical Terrarium Advent from last year. And this was the project bag that came with the Advent. And I am using my Advent yarn from My Creative Garage from 2024. So this was the Flowers Advent, and I'm making the Lamina Cowl by Amber O'Brien, and it is looking great. So this pattern comes as either a wrap or a cowl, and I'm making the cowl version because I have enough shawls and things, and I really like the idea of a big long cowl that you can kind of loop up a couple of times. And so here is my progress so far. Ooh, it looks good. It looks good. So it's this lovely, lovely lace pattern here. And so I've done day one, which is this beautiful variegated colour. day 2 and day 3, and you can see there's a sort of garter rows in a main colour in between each day. So this pattern is heaps of fun. It's very straightforward, very quick. It has instructions for the lace. It has instructions that are written out or in chart form. What's your preference? I prefer the written out instructions. I don't know why. I think it's because I've knit so many Stephen West patterns and he writes all of his instructions out. It fits in my head better. If I read it, I can then just repeat it over and over. But yeah, so I'm using a 3.75mm needle, which is I think what the pattern suggests. And I got this Avent on the sparkle base. The main skein in this Avent was actually a beautiful variegated colour. And so I've grabbed a bare skein of yarn that was actually included in a different Avent. So this is from Rainbows and Sprinkles, and it's just their bare sock yarn, and the skein of that was included in the Avent from them. So I grabbed that out and I'm using that here because I don't think I need to use it for what I want to do with that Avent. And yeah, so that one is not a sparkle base, but this Avent, the Flowers Avent, is a sparkle base. So you might be able to see the sparkle in that yarn, but it's going to be absolutely beautiful, sparkly treat around my neck. So and each of these, so it goes so quickly because each of these sections you only do I think 12 rows or something, and it uses just less than 7 grams of yarn. So it's super quick in terms of getting through each section. Each section doesn't take that long, so you're only knitting up 7 grams of yarn. And I'm going to have heaps of leftovers, so I'm thinking I'm going to make some sort of blanket out of the leftovers of this because it's just too pretty for it to sit in my stash. So we'll see what I do with that. But what
Sorry, I don't understand.
Ooh, Siri's talking to us. Hang on. There we go. Just turn her off. What you will see is that because I'm doing the cowl, it was a provisional cast on, and so I did a provisional cast on onto one of these barber cords. So there was a tutorial that I used for this. It was very straightforward, really easy. The tutorial was great. It was by Laura Nelkin. I'll put the link. The link is already in my project page, so if you click on my project page for this project, you can click on the link to the tutorial. It's a video tutorial and it just shows you, it's very simple. But yeah, so I've got that provisional cast on over my barber cord, so when I've finished it and I'm ready to join them, I just need to slip a needle onto that side and I can do my 3 needle bind off, which is I think how we join them in the end. But yeah, great project. I think I've got a stitch marker here because I think I made a little boo-boo in the lace. I've got one less stitch here, but in true Stephen West form, I'm not going to drop down and try and fix the lace. I don't think you can actually tell that there's a mistake, and I'm just gonna make a stitch here in the white section when I knit that next. I'm just gonna make a stitch and you're not even gonna know. It's gonna be great. So that's my Lamina cowl. That was my New Year's Eve cast on. Very fun, very quick, very satisfying project. Having a lot of fun with that one. So my last project is one that you have seen a couple of times before, but it is an Avent project and I have been working on it. It's actually an Avent project from last year, and it is my Trifle Wrap by Helen Stewart. So I'm knitting this up in Rainbows and Sprinkles Avent from 2023. That's the right year, yes. Candyland Avent. And I'm holding that Avent, which was a fingering weight Avent, 4-ply. I'm holding it with bare silk mohair. So it's fluffy and delicious. But this pattern, it's not my nemesis so much as it's just not easy breezy, and it's just not one that I immediately pick up when I sit down and think, oh, I want to knit on something. And so unlike the anthology throw or the habitation throw, which both of those were Helen Stewart patterns and I breezed through them, absolutely flew through them, this one is just not that for me. I don't know why, but I have made good progress since the last podcast. So my stitch markers here, so this was where it was when I showed at the last podcast episode, and then this was where I was at the very start of Vlogmas. So I think there's maybe 1 or 2 rows difference between those two things. But then I picked it up during Advent and I have knit all of this during December. So I feel like that's quite good. So 1, 2, 3, almost 4 colours. Almost 4 colours. So that's great progress. I'm feeling very, very pleased with myself, and I think I'm enjoying the project a little bit more than I was before, and I am finding it, if I just do a couple of rows each day, I'm enjoying it and I'm getting through it. So I am making really good progress, and it is just beautiful. Like all those colours muted down with the mohair. It is just really, really beautiful, and I'm looking forward to having that done. But I think I'm up to, what am I knitting on? I'm knitting on day 14 at the moment, so I'm more than halfway. And yeah, that will be really, really good to have that one done. So I think that was all that I was going to. Oh, I did cut because that was an Avent project from the year before, so I cast that one on the 3rd of December 2023. So I definitely need to finish it this year. I can't be having that one hanging around for much longer. I need to just keep getting through it. I did want to show you, so I'm using up that Daffodil Road Advent at the moment, and with the big chunky leftovers, and I'm also knitting my New Year's Eve cast on with my creative garage yarn. Each section means that there's quite a bit of leftovers left at the end of each section. So I wanted to show you the container I'm using to store my Advent. So this is just from Kmart. So I had a few questions on Vlogmas about this. It's a container from Kmart, and it has 24 boxes. So it must be made for yarn Advents. It didn't have that on the label, but I think that's its main purpose. But essentially I have, if you look here, these are the leftovers from my Daffodil Road Paper Moon Advent, and I've used the first 7 colours. So I'm up to colour 8 next on that one, and as I go through I'm just pulling them out, using up the entire thing, and then magic knotting and moving on to the next colour. So as I use those, as I work through that project, these ones will disappear, and as I work through my lamina cowl and have leftovers, I'm popping the leftovers in here from each of those sections. So this is going to do 2 things. It motivates me to empty this out, so to finish off my Just Feel Festive shawl, to empty out this so that I can then fill it up with this one. But it also motivates me to make good progress on both, because I can't be just working on this because I'll run out of spaces. So it's a little bit motivating, but it is also really, really good storage solution for Advents. It is a bit of a squeezing a full 20 gram in there. You can do it, I've done it, but it's much better for when you have chunky leftovers. It works really, really well. So that was all in terms of my projects for today. I have mentioned that I'm going to do my next video will be a bit of a whip check-in. That'll be in a few weeks, and I'll also show you some acquisitions in that video in terms of things that I got over the Christmas period, but also for my birthday, which is in a week. So if I get anything yarny for my birthday, I'll collect all those things up and I'll show you in my next video. But that's really all I wanted to check in with today. I hope you're having a wonderful start to the year, and I hope you're making all the things that bring you joy. and I will say goodbye and hope you have a lovely day. Bye.